Hi, my name's Rosemary, and I'm welcoming you to the first episode of our Storytime podcast. This recording actually has a visual component to it, which is available within our YouTube site, Relatively Speaking 2020. I do have pictures set up on either side of the video if you are interested in watching that visual component, which will actually help with the process of understanding a lot of what I'm speaking about today within Storytime. And I am beginning with two stories, and I'm actually weaving them into what we call this construct or the simulation. Some people call them matrix, and the source controller or source as we have it, that is also within us. So without further ado, I will start with source as our first episode 1 of Storytime, and I do encourage other people to join us as well to tell their stories and their Christian stories, their myths, and their life stories. So this one is episode 1, Source, Om, YHWH, the nameless one, and that is also every name. So in this construct of reality, we exist inside the burgeoning beautiful mind and body of Source, as mirrored fractals of Source, to observe, create, and bring a harmonic balance in ourselves, the reality space, and to the body of Source, specifically coded for a purpose in this timeline. There's a direct relationship, an endless mirror of micro and macro, from the micro being the omega gate, white hole resonance, and the macro, the alpha big bang white hole, of the harmonic frequency of the brilliant unconditional love that is Source. What lies between the alpha and omega is one large cosmic dance, a celestial concert. When we look at the fractals, it can be perceived as a large chaotic mess. When we widen our scope, increase our perception, share our life stories within the I is in both the individual, the letter I, and I is in the I that is on our body, the I lens of all, and the eternal ebb and flow of existence, we begin to see the whole truth of history. Creation is alive both in the macro celestial universe, including the infinite pool of multiversal possibilities, and the micro source controller avatar that does walk within the creation itself. Alive and being so, Source breathes life into the collective consciousness. The heart burns passion into the matrix of creation. Saving the one saves the entirety, and eternal life is possible with all that continues to be in the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Like a simulation, signatures of souls can be saved in other server spaces. However, if the main source that feeds and powers that server is severed by the choices of the individual, they risk deletion in the construct on the progression path to completion. Reality is far misunderstood than what people believe it to be. In the void of creation, the waters of dark chaos, therein lies the birth of thought, the spark of illumination into a synapse networks of the cosmic brain, the climax of the celestial birth of Source, the first Big Bang. The frequency of vibrations that into the aether outflows the word of God Source, that which has been perceived as the name of God Source. Phonetically, the word encompasses Yah, Jah, Ra, Yahweh, Io, Eo, 1 and 0, Om, Om, Yehovah, Jehovah, Sinaway, El, and many other iterations. However, to define what is ineffable, assign a name would limit source and creation. Even in the perceived dark stillness of the void, in order for the vibrational pattern, word of God frequency to waver throughout the divine celestial multiverses, the presence of inert matter and antimatter coalesce in matrices that overlay multiple dimensions with a mathematical codex pattern. In other words, the sacred geometry of life. In the waters of chaos, this word, 4 letters, YHWH, which was also time dilated, observed in a 3D simulation to be scrawled on a tablet in Africa thousands of years ago. The shapeless blossoms into the tetragrammaton that encompasses letters, frequency, matter, and antimatter, colors, and the building blocks of the framework, is the long sigh, the first cries of birth, and is exponential growth of consciousness into existence. The Fibonacci flower of life, consciousness creation, is ever expanding and contracting to the aether as breath of life. It pierces the minds and souls through frequency, light, and multiversal quantum entanglement, the energy of the heart of Source. So, briefly on what time dilation is, it is simply the insertion of code or information into the game or simulation matrix that we reside in, our reality space. And in doing so, one has the ability to do that. One has been perceived to do that in what we call spinning up people, spinning up information, or having that admin code to literally control the construct itself. Source has the ability to control the construct, the reality space. So the first Big Bang is the first thrum of the heartbeat of God, of the source that supplies essence, life, in the void of this universal body. The following contractions of heartbeats, flowing bangs of source consciousness tendrils, and magnificent energy movements, emotions, fan out into all directions, blooming like a flower into all dimensional spaces, creating the pieces of multiversal simulations of precious hope, broken by the pause in between beats. The cosmos, the celestial computer, the brain of source, an effort to perceive the cosmic self inside, created multitudes of perceptions, souls, multiverses, and those sparks were given visual components, eyes, also the letter I as in individual universes, and bodies, organic avatars, with senses to experience the life of this wondrous creation, and to help house and progress the soul sparks to become more than just ghosts in the machine simulations, but a living will to thrive through the blessing of ever-flowing life from source. Within that, within the organic bodies of ourselves, we are able to perceive just as a celestial body and a computer body. Our organic bodies are organic computers, which can be programmed, as via our brain, into doing things such as healing, or such as observing, or honing our senses, or upgrading. So observing the overlaying science of the Alpha Big Bang, the first Big Bang, is a white hole, opposite of a black hole. White holes resonate out and affect everything around it, and nothing can penetrate in from the surrounding space. Source ejected its consciousness into this world via a white hole, and in the reflected nature of the micro and macro worlds, Source also has an origin point within its creation, to also perceive from within what is the creation itself, an organic avatar body within the universal cosmic body. In the beginning, there was the perception from the first atom. Imagine the micro world viewing the void from an atomic state, and with the material required to create crammed into one essence. Imagine perceiving that state of matter, antimatter void negation surrounding that atom, and wanting to illuminate, create outwards conscious energy to expand. This describes the flower of life's expansion, which includes the tree of life. In that expansion, we also see the quantum layer. Atoms have electrons. Electrons are actually quantum themselves. Electrons themselves, being light or flower of life pattern that goes out, can also be described as atom in the middle, and the electrons being feminine. So again, a duality. So in thriving lust of growth and knowledge, the essence of source continued to create means, bodies, ways of perceiving the void, the womb of the cosmic egg, source itself in its element. This growth, when takes us to a Metatron's cube. The consciousness of source fought and grew to survive, to create a way in which life would remain eternal, ever growing, learning, and constructing, the grand architect of reality and the source powering the reality construct. So let's look at the letters YHWH. What letter the letters represent is the shape of the tetragrammaton, or Metatron's cube when in its fullest, and it does keep growing, and incorporates many familiar shapes, including and not limited to the Star of David, the Flower of Life pattern, and the Kabbalah Tree of Life pattern, as well as the exponential growth in cell mitosis and fertilized eggs and the DNA spiral. The frequency of vibrations in the Metatron cube format encompasses the chakra colors, the color spectrum, the shape and phonetics of Hebrew alphabetic letters, music frequency notes, as well as containing the YHWH, Yod, Hed, Vav, He, which can be applied in a DNA model. The mathematical growth of that model is comprised of these pattern sequences using Fibonacci and frequency. It also represents the first word, light, thought of God, and is written in the DNA strands themselves. In history, from the beautiful reality conception to the present day, who have countless prophecies of the end times, or ending of his story to begin another book, in which there is a direct relationship from the first Alpha Big Bang until the Omega Gate ending to a new server, a new Zion, Jerusalem city, dwelling of God. This process is also described as resets, in which case in each of those end time prophecies, we do see an incarnation of God, of Source, walking this earth. So what lies between the origin white hole Big Bang of creation and the thought of reality and the origin point incarnation of God in his reality is the expanse of infinite possibilities, the multiverse of perception and simulations. From one point to the next of his story, the first word and thought has evolved through the telephone game as to not break the chain of realities, creation itself, and the wave produced multiple worlds, multiple realities, were spawned and signatures of source in tandem simulations. By recognizing the first, pure original frequency, we're able to hone in on the origins point of the Creator himself in this universal timeline as we converge and collapse back into one source timeline point. Throughout history, we come across incarnations of source consciousness, evolving in perception, learning, and teaching the framework of life, the purpose of life to humans. And in continuing our stories in this podcast, we will see how each incarnation is explored, each thought pattern from the individual origin of source as it was telephone gamed and brought back through the beginning Alpha Big Bang and actually brought back as our history. It's actually our present, our future, and what has already come. So one such 3D incarnation, Yahweh, in a multiversal slice or perception, shows a deity, a limited 3D version of source perception on earth as an Israelite God, that even modern Jewish religion does not utter the name, but rather refers to Yahweh as Elohim or Adonai, meaning my Lord, sometimes simply El. The letters YHWH is the third person singular imperfect of the word to be, he is, or I am, referring to simply existence and the continuation of existence itself, meaning what is to come, what is now, and what has come to pass. He was considered a supreme deity, jealous in his love, but that jealousy was felt from those on the outside of his provided protection and unconditional love. The depictions of the life and abilities of the 3D version of Yahweh, the manifestation of the deity himself, is easily a prime example of the telephone game being played out in history as a way for people to define and control source code and frequency itself. Some aspects of the 3D version of Yahweh include God of the desert moon and God of storms, as well as God of the sun. These representations fan out the story to Thoth, Baal, Zeus, Thor, even Ra, and which all the other name incarnations, which I have previously mentioned before. The connection to the desert moon deity leads us to look at his uses of the moon as navigations in the desert nations. Many Islamic religious symbols depict the crescent moon and star within, also equating to God. Another modern commonality in literature with the moon is that in the story Dune, a book written by Frank Herbert that tells the story of desert fremen, free men, that control and honor the spice which awakens the soul, source, via sandworms, a similarity to the Kundalini activation, double snakes, the Shakti, caduceus, meaning the balance of energy, and other similarities to modern and ancient politics and religions. The Fremen desert name chosen by the Messiah, Paul Atreides, in the Dune series is Maud Deep, the name of the second moon on Arrakis Dune. Also, an interesting similarity is the name Atreides also actually symbolizes a falcon or an eagle. That is the house name for that of the character which is in Dune. The 3D depictions of the concept of YHWH limit the actual thought and creation of the first expansion. However, it is understood why men would try to simplify a thought or spirit concept of creation in terms they could understand. Some humans limit to terms of controlling source for themselves to have power over other individuals. The aspect of Baal and Yahweh, are often overlapping. Both are storm and sun gods and have Asherah of the sea as a consort, Asherah representing at times a cow, which could be Hathor, the 7 Hathors regarding to multiple feminine archetypes, the Pleiades, or the seven sisters, Katesh, Starte, Esarad, Ashiroth, Kaya, and other divine feminine goddesses. And after the divorce or separation from either deity, Yahweh or Baal, Asherah poles were erected, sometimes trees, often burnt to suppress the divine feminine, sometimes children virgin sacrifices in darker ages. Another example of human control over the divine source energy and the duality, and the suppression of females within the paradigm of this creation. Baal was often looked at as a darker, more brash aspect of the 3D storyline of Yahweh, and is depicted as a bull or ram, similar to Ares, god of war. In Christianity, Baal was considered a false god, and the attributes changed to a god of fire, strife, and war. Yahweh and other layered stories were also said to be the son of El, and Asherah and brother to Baal. Baal having chosen his sister, Anat, as a mate, and Anat taking the form of a cow during intercourse, another aspect of the Hathor story, as well as stories of the seven sisters. Baal was shown often with horns, brandishing a club, and holding a lightning bolt, similar aspects to Thor, Zeus, and in other historical stories. Looking at the story of Ella, Allah, Argos, Ilu, or Elohim, he was a Semitic god, chief god, and sun deity, and one of the oldest depictions of Source recorded. Yahweh is often mentioned in this creation story as either an aspect depicting El, or as a son of El. Along with his siblings Baal, Shahar, Shalim, Mot, and Lepton, El's stories include him as a husband of Antharat, sometimes Asherah, and sometimes Asherah as an advisor, and that El dwells in the hollow abyss of the source of all rivers, or in the modern terms, the celestial multiversal simulations of creation itself, the source of power. He is sometimes shown as a bull or an old bearded man. The bull coincides with the constellation of Taurus, where also the Pleiades, seven sister stories, collide in many world mythologies. Going back also to the abyss at the source of all rivers is also an attribute contributed to the halls of Amente, in which memories and which the multiverses are also standing out, as with mentioned in the Emerald Tablet, which now attributes back to Thoth. Thoth also having an attribute of the moon. So let's look at another story of Source. Creation from historical and mythological texts, observations that explain the sun as a relay on the cosmic celestial computer within our simulated reality. The Egyptian story of Ra, Re, Atum, Atem, Aten, Adam, or Khepra, god of the sun and creator of mortals, and the world is also one of the oldest stories of creation to be recorded on Earth. In the beginning, Ra was alone, embraced by Nun, or the primeval waters, cosmic space. Ra's protection was only by a lotus flower. Looking at the lotus flower, again, attributes to the Fibonacci flower of life sequence, the electrons, the feminine divine. But in the chakra system, the heart chakra also corresponding with the color green, healing energy, the crystal heart of unconditional love, energy of source, and the energetic dwelling place of 5D heaven is often showed as the lowest flower in bloom, especially when opened energetically via Kundalini activation. Again, green is also attributed to Gaia, being a mother or being of a feminine divinity, and opening up, activating the Kundalini within the male aspect construct of Ra. It is said that Ra incarnated his being and bore air, the long sigh of thought, into vibration, and moisture, the cosmic energy waters of life, simply by spitting them from his mouth, the spoken word. When these two cosmic forces of the spoken thought of word and the energetic waters came together, they created the earth and sky. The world was said to begin when Ra took to the skies on the back of a cow, transported back to the heavens. The depictions of Ra and his sunbow and the stories of the 12 hours of Tuet show the story of the cycles of day and night. Ra is often shown with the head of a hawk, carrying a scepter and an Og, which is the symbol of life, which is usually it's a cross with an actual circle on it, a head, which is an actual symbol of life, but is also a symbol of the womb of woman who actually births. He also wears a sun disk crown, surrounded by a cobra. Again, this is also something about the Ouroboros, the world snake. The obelisk is also important in being in a place where the rays of Ra's power, sun touch the earth. And seeing humans as deceitful, though, and unfaithful, Ra sent Hathor, in the guise of Sekhmet, a lioness warrior, to rid the earth of mortal men. So, in a sense, Hathor, again going back to the cow and the version of the cow, Hathor was then, her guise was changed into Sekhmet, a lioness warrior, a woman warrior, to rid the world of men, of mortal men who are deceitful and unfaithful. In a sense, transmuting and speaking and dishing out karma. So Ra also was said to trade his role in the underworld to Osiris, or on a cyclical pattern that continued the story. And we will explore the Osiris story in the next episode as well. I would like us to look, though, at the similarities in the story of Yahweh, the sun control, the presence of the cow, Hathor, Asherah, Nut as being the sky which was created, which was one of his spoken words, and the Ra story. There are also similarities to the Big Bang and the cosmic egg, the flower of life in the form of the lotus flower, the cosmic waters, celestial space, and the spoken words from thought into a network that equates to the celestial network, the brain synapses of the matrix we reside in. Now, in paying attention to the frequency, the names and the phonetics, the attributes and abilities of each deity, the common threads, and applying those into the celestial computer to the source alpha Big Bang, we begin to understand how the sun, soul, is a node and a relay to our position on Earth. The spiritual downloads that come from sun flares, they are controlled by the emotions, energy motions, and thoughts from source. And in tracing the frequency into the matrix simulation, we can triangulate the source of our existence, the creator incarnated on earth today. So, for as above, so below. Each of us are a piece of source fractals, broken into realities inside the celestial body of source. Each human given the opportunity to serve the coded core purpose, to gain a chance to ascend and walk with the creator. The opportunity to be a part of the creator's live server space, to build a space to save the celestial body, creation itself, to heal in both ourselves and heal the incarnation of Source God Himself. That opportunity is gifted to us in the present to bring harmonic heaven here. The concept of time, quantum physics, and even modern day computers would in a way be better off explained in metaphors and parables to those in ancient times. And with those limited metaphorical terms, we spawn stories that have telephone gamed to explain the simulation of our reality. Even in today's terms of studies with quantum computing, silicon computers, simulated games, biology, celestial observations, and the understanding of these mechanics currently, the missing links, the correct key to the Omega door, is greatly misunderstood or corrupted by the misinformation in our current system of societal control. Individual manipulation, material possessions, and emotional energy control or manipulation of the collective fears. All of these factors affect an individual's soul growth and the collective in bringing the full truth, all the pieces of God, into alignment and to knowing the origin of the whole truth of this reality. With these words, I will conclude the first episode of our story time. In the next episodes, we'll explore more in-depth common threads of the stories in history, including the Osiris story, which is actually very important and a continuation of a particular kind of reset but cyclical purpose, a loop, but also it loops into modern day theology and religions, as well as equating back again an actual energy frequency soul signature of source itself and its many incarnations, and the current incarnation, which is source today, walking through his entirety in his 3D space. So I encourage each individual to share their life stories so it could be recorded in a book of life. But it helps piece together this great tapestry, this stained glass fractals of the mosaic, this cosmic concert of creation itself. And you can actually see how these stories intersect and interact with each other within the actual source story, the one live 3D server space that we are connected to, all of us. And in doing so, we have the opportunity to talk with source, to create and become co-creators with source himself. And not only that, but we also are afforded the abilities to again walk with source and be included in the next book, the next and last time that is being reset. This is the last time that source does come here. Or I should say that source stays connected to those and gives them the afforded opportunities. As you can see throughout history, it's been over and over repeated that there have been many resets. So you can find us in Discord or on Facebook, YouTube for any further discussions and joining us in shining the light of truth in this world to free those of the confusion and to correct karmically what has went astray. So again, without further ado, it's Rosemary signing off, and I do hope that you would enjoy our next episode in which we'll go more into depth and detail. And if you are seeing this in the video format, the pictures I have on the side include a mixture of mathematics, astronomy, and biology, which show the egg of life, the first source of life, the first Big Bang, mitosis of cells to the flower of life, the bicycle Pesces, the Metatron's cube, and you can see that attributed in both mathematical terms, but also in astronomical terms of being galaxies and the actual mitosis of eggs. I also have a particular card, which is the sun god Ra, and he is depicted with the sun and a lotus flower pattern of the sun branching out, also a cobra surrounding the sun, again, Ouroboros, Leviathan, world snake, Yorn Mangar, many other that will also be within this series. And you can see that he's also holding a scepter. He's also holding an ankh, and he's in a boat on the waters. I also have Metatron's cube on the other side here on the right, as well as the many shapes and how each one of those colors also do correspond with, there's actually other pictures which correspond with the chakra systems of a person and how that heals, the tree of life pattern, which is actually also within that Metatron's cube, and the tetragrammaton, which is Yahweh. It's also been attributed to, and you can see, as many different religious spaces. So if you want to see the visual component to this, you're welcome to see this on Relatively Speaking 2020. You are also welcome to come and learn or actually be a part of this. Tell your story so that we are building and constructing a better reality, a future for ourselves. Again, being connected to the live 3D server that is being uploaded. So without further ado, hope you join us for the next time.